It's 4 AM and I've lost control of my life. Welcome back to Let's Play Sonic Adventure, featuring the guy that talks, Golem. So first off, I'm going to try something I've never tried before with Egg Viper, and then we're going to cut to a running run, and I lose a few lives in between because Egg Viper is super boring. I hate being patient around this guy. This is dumb. This is stupid. I just want it to be over. And so I will only give you the winning run because I keep making mistakes because I'm impatient. Yeah. Anyway, so the interesting topic instead of Egg Viper would be the course of the LP. So at the beginning I said my goal was to basically view Sonic stages as a combination of, you know, different senses of level design where you'd have speed, exploration, and platforming. And, you know, the Tails portions would highlight the speed, and the Knuckles portions would highlight the exploration. And I got to that a little bit, but I think what I more or less provided here in the LP was, I don't know, a beginning of sorts. There is a lot more you could do with each stage than what I did here in the LP. Although, anyone who looks into Sonic Adventure level design is going to be faced with the challenge of, basically, wow, I'm still saying basically, I have learned everything. Anyway. The problem with the Sonic campaign, for, you know, a critic anyway, would be that there's no sense of progression. It's just a bunch of neat structures. But simultaneously, like, as a player, that's a really interesting thing. Because Knuckles and Tails, the two, you know... Okay, so Knuckles and Tails, I've gone over the level progressions for both. How Tails, you know, starts out simple, gets more platformy, ends up at Speed Highway. And how Knuckles has the sort of mirror effect where it starts out really pathy, and then by the middle of Knuckles' story, it gets, you know, open, and then towards the end it gets, you know, Knuckles is stuck on paths again. So there are definitely, like, identifiable trends in Knuckles and Tails' stories. But there are no such trends in Sonic's. So it's like... Sonic's story is a bunch of stages with different ideas, and then Knuckles and Tails each find their own ways of creating meaningful progressions out of those stages. It actually reminds me of... I remember one Iwata asks, I believe it was Miyamoto that said this, that he tends to, like... that his approach to game development is just to create a whole bunch of neat assets, and then later on figure out, well, how are you going to create a sensible level progression out of this? And so... in terms of Sonic Adventure, the Sonic stages would be like the initial development of just, let's create a whole bunch of different assets and see what we can do with this crazy engine of ours. And then Knuckles and Tails are the refinements, where they pick out specific things that work together well, and they create a cohesive experience. So that's interesting in and of itself. That's something I never would have realized before this LP. In general, you know, I'm a little unsatisfied with this LP because it could have been done a lot better, obviously. But I certainly have learned through this experience about Sonic Adventure. I have a lot more respect for it than I did before. You know, before I definitely would classify myself as a Sonic Adventure 2 man. Alright, Crush 40. Oh boy. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that a pretty big inspiration for this LP was Simply Simon, as he's known on Something Awful, or Twin Yawgmoth, as he's known on YouTube. I guess I'll leave a link to his channel in the description. But he takes a very thoughtful approach to Mega Man games. He hits his stride around Mega Man 3 and 4. At the moment of this recording, he's going through Mega Man 0, and that might be his most interesting LP so far. Personally, I think he's at his most interesting when he's doing a game that's still fun and interesting, but has some critical flaws in it. It's a nice balance for him to explore. Anyway, even though he's an inspiration, or maybe because he's an inspiration, he does a much better job. As I mentioned in the Metal Sonic video, with this LP I was sort of flailing around, experimenting with what I could find. Actually, while I got you here, why did I mention that? I don't know. At first I considered a Socket LP, but I already have those videos up on my account, and you have all of my thoughts in the descriptions. Socket actually has a very interesting level progression where they start out linear. Like, each world has 3 levels. The first is very linear, the second is like a little, you gotta find your way around, and then the third is just an outright maze. And one thing that I really like about Socket is that each maze has a very identifiable theme, and I don't know, I really like that in mazes. But that brought me to another idea. I could LP Ocarina of Time. Ocarina of Time is my favorite Zelda game because the dungeon design in that game is sublime, I think. There's a very clear progression of mazes. It defines a very... I don't know what to say it defines. It has a very cohesive sense of what it expects in a maze. The mazes are definitely interesting. Majora's Mask also has interesting mazes, but you start seeing in Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, and most recently Skyward Sword, the mazes, well, they just don't exist in Zelda anymore. Whereas Ocarina of Time, that's all the dungeons were about, and that was the entire progression of that game's dungeons. I think I said in a previous video that I don't play Zelda for anything but dungeons. And I guess that's sort of how I carried out this Sonic Adventure LP, isn't it? I had a very specific way to play Sonic Adventure. This is a game that takes work to have fun with. As stupid as that sounds. And that's actually, that's the rule of thumb with 3D Sonic up until Sonic Colors. They take work to have fun with. Anyway, I hope to see you around.